So Deanne, we have Deanne and Leanne today. So Deanne loves organized words and experiences to help people thrive. She grew up in a Connecticut schoolhouse built in the 1800s. She completed a master's degree in speech language pathology, and then she moved across country to work in Helena, Montana. After doing speech therapy in the school system for 5 years, she was set up on a blind date with Cowboy Bob. 13 months later, Deanne and Bob married, and she shifted to full-time work with Cru Campus Ministry in Missoula in 2014. Ministry has allowed her to work in several different countries, most recently serving in Italy for 1 year. She published a book last August. I have it up here to show you guys. And the book is available here also, right? You have it over in room 106? Yeah. So the book is called Her Battle Strength, Relying on God and Relating to Men as a Force for Good. So this is Deanne's first book. Yeah. And the book is about exploring stories about women facing battles in life and how we can learn to rely on God and wield the strengths He gives us. She enjoys volunteering at a local horse barn, teaching the MAC kids 4th, 5th grade Sunday school class, reading adventure novels, and raising a puppy. Please welcome Deanne for me.
Okay, I am excited to be here this morning. I'm excited to build connection with other women and excited to share from different parts of my life. I'm going to share a little bit from some ancient Mesopotamian research. So exciting. And then some work as what I was consider a body function therapist. So I'll talk a little more about that later. Thank you to Leanne for sharing. When I think about gifts, I love just the experience. When I hear Leanne speak and have coffee with her, I feel seen and cared about and encouraged. So I see God using that gift, which is neat. So our verse today was, "For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him." And I'm going to talk about a certain aspect of that. So how God works in us during the battles that we face in life, and how He works through us in those battles that we face, and then how can we care for our battle-weary selves. So hopefully you'll relate to at least one of those. I'm actually going to move over here. There we go. Okay, so I was thinking of battles in life, and I wrote down a few: relational conflict, decision-making, weightiness, health crises or lifelong health challenges. Could be depression, anxiety, betrayal, slander, caregiving exhaustion, or maybe having a loved one who's far from God. So as we think about God working in us first, I wanted to share my favorite Hebrew word. There we go. Azer. A few of you have heard me speak about this, so I added in some new elements. But this word is often used, or several times, is used to describe God. So I'm going to read 3 verses that have this word Azer, and then ask you to kind of guess or tell me what's the English equivalent that we use. So the first one is in Psalm 33. "Our soul waits for the Lord. He is our Azer and our shield." Yep. Okay, next one. Deuteronomy 33. "Who is like you, a people saved by the Lord, the shield of your Azer and the sword of your triumph?" And the last one that I'll read, Psalm 121. I'll move this over a little bit. Psalm 121. "I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my Azer come from? My Azer comes from the Lord." So what is Azer in English? What do we use? Help, yes. My help. My help and my shield, my help and my sword of triumph. Where does my help come from? Sometimes when we think of a help or helper, I think of a classroom helper or a teacher's helper or a mother's helper who's kind of this assistant. They're not as skilled or as smart or as whatever as the main person. They're the helper. But here we have this word Azer used for God as a help, which is clearly a strong and powerful help. And so I think of, as I research this word, I think of this Azer help as someone who brings battle strength to someone in need, who battles on behalf of someone that they're in relationship with. So not just an assistant. And as I was studying kind of the time of David and ancient Mesopotamia and battle stories, there's this different reference to an armor bearer. And so at first, I thought about an armor bearer. It's kind of like an assistant. Like the armor bearer puts all the armor in a bag, and then they swing it over their shoulder, and they just kind of like walk behind the person with this armor in a bag. And then they get somewhere, and they kind of throw it down. Maybe they help the person get their armor on, and then they kind of sit there by a tree and watch the battle happen. But that was not what an armor bearer was like. And so I brought an example to show you. That armor bearer, well, in history, they had their own weapons. They were part of the battle that someone was facing. So the first thing I'm going to show you is what you might have in battle. Okay, so this is a Wonder Woman replica sword that I got for Christmas from my husband. So that's great. But if I were in battle, and we'll just say this is a two-handed sword. If people were to attack me, if you all were to attack me with arrows or spears or rocks, what might happen if I'm just standing here? I will probably get hit. When I talked about Azer with Dig in the middle schoolers, I had them throw things at me. So that was very exciting. And I got hit by a lot of things. And there was a lot of chaos. But that's okay. So if I was facing a battle, I might have an armor bearer, which would be great. So I've asked a friend, Clara, to come up and demonstrate another thing you might need, something that is popular with an armor bearer. You can put this on either arm and stay on that side. So often, even in the Bible, when you see the word Azer and talking about God, one of the most frequent words that's paired with that is shield. Azer and shield, help and shield. And so if you think about this, I could be someone with a sword, or I could be someone, an archer, who has to use both hands. They can't hold a shield if they're in battle. But if I have an armor bearer who was with me in the battle, not standing on the side, I'd still get hit if she was on the side. But if we were in battle together, especially armor bearers would be on the right-hand side if people were right-handed and held their sword, because they might have a shield and a sword, but then they'd have their armor bearer. So she would have to obviously be very near, and this would need to be bigger to be very effective. But even when we practiced with the middle schoolers, I got hit a lot less when I had my armor bearer. So thank you, Clara. That's great. Very good. Okay. So little history lesson. Also, I don't mean to imply that God shields us from everything. That's not true. He didn't shield his son from all suffering, so he didn't promise to shield us from all suffering. But he has promised us other things, which we'll look at next. Because sometimes we might imagine facing battle and we're strong, we're ready for action. But I found another picture of a woman facing a battle. Oh, too far. There we go. It says, sometimes he calms the storm and sometimes he calms his child. And this is kind of a hard picture to look at. But she's not standing confidently. She's not even standing. She's not calmly facing adversity. She's like screaming out in agony. But what in this picture reminds me of what God has promised. And it goes back to that Azer and armor bearer. Here are a few, this is my book, so I'm going to read a few parts from it because I looked at armor bearers and Azer and connected those. And then looked at things that God is described as. And so this is the category near to the person under attack, which is what an armor bearer would have to be. So here's a few verses from Psalm 145. The Lord is near to all who call on him. Psalm 34. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Psalm 73. But for me it is good to be near God. I have made the Lord God my refuge. And Jesus in Matthew 28. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. And so I was thinking about this nearness of God, an armor bearer, and I was preparing and practicing last Sunday and gave this talk to a friend of mine, And she said, oh, that was good, but that's cool that God's near us, but I don't actually know how that helps me. And I thought, oh, that's very important to think about. How does nearness help us? So I went to bed Sunday night, and I had a terrible night. And I have had ear pain, which is a longer story, for 2 years. And we just keep trying to deal with it, and it's not going away. So Sunday night, I was up in the middle of the night, my head hurt, my ears hurt, and I got up, and I just kind of was walking around in the darkness, because if I don't get up, then my brain is like, crazy things, crazy things. So I have to actually get up. And so I was walking around, and in my mind, I was thinking of these words, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. That was all I could remember. But I kept kind of wandering, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. So I knew it was from the Bible, and I went and looked it up, and it's from Lamentations, which is a hard but good. It's kind of like, reminds me of this picture. It says, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. So those words came to mind, and then I thought, okay, well, how does this, I think God wants me to be thinking about this in the middle of the night. And then it brought another verse to mind, and this started connecting to what actually does God's nearness do for me. So in John 14, Jesus is about to leave, he's about to be betrayed and killed, and he says that he won't leave his people alone. He says, I will send a helper, another good word there, who will be with you forever, he will live in you. That's pretty near. And then later on he says, but the helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things and bring to your remembrance all that I've said to you. And so I'm going to list 5 things that nearness does, but that's the first one, bringing God's words to our remembrance. At whatever time we might need them, he can bring his words to remembrance. Okay, the next one of God's nearness is in Galatians 5. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. So God's Spirit is in us. We can have the fruit of the Spirit. And I thought, well, what if God was everything but not near? And so I was thinking through the fruit of the Spirit, and I thought, what if I'm taking kids on a hike, and we go out on this hike, and we're hiking Blue Mountain, and I haven't had anything to eat, so I'm kind of hangry, and the kids are yelling at each other and throwing and complaining, and it was supposed to be this beautiful time in nature. So I feel like I probably should have patience. But God is everything, but not near, so I have to just corral everyone back down the mountain. We have to get in the vehicle, and then I have to drive and look for a church. And as soon as I get to a church, I have to knock on the door and hope someone's there. And then they have to let me in, and then I have to explain, and I have to go into the sanctuary and sit down, and then I can say, God, please give me patience. That's what we would have to do if God was not near. There would need to be all these other steps. So recalling things to our mind, growing the fruit of the Spirit. In John 15:26, it talks about the Spirit will reveal all truth, will reveal truth to you. So I think about, on a Saturday night talking to a friend, and she reveals she's in an abusive relationship, but it's her fault because things have been twisted. And so I hear this on a Saturday night, and then I think, well, please wait till tomorrow, and then on Sunday, maybe I can have something to tell you, because on Sunday I can receive truth. But God is not near, so thanks for sharing. Wait till Sunday. But God is near. He can show us truth. I think of Philippians 4 with not being anxious, bringing things to God. He will guard our hearts and our minds. I think of that armor bearer. And I get anxious about things a lot, but I think God is near. I can give those things to him. Because most of the things I'm anxious about, I can do this much about. But God has power, so I can give those things to him. Psalm 55, I'll read that one, about God being near. But I call to God, and the Lord will save me. Evening and morning and at noon, I utter my complaint and moan, and he hears my voice. He redeems my soul in safety from the battle that I wage. And I love that, because not only because God is near, he can tell me things, but because he is near, he can hear me. Not just through a perfect prayer or a scripted song, but when I complain and moan, God can still hear me. So the last thing about thinking of being near, Monday morning when I woke up, I still wasn't feeling good, but my puppy came in and laid on the bed next to me, and I felt better. And then because I was preparing this talk, I thought, why do I feel better when my puppy is laying near me? He's not taking away my ear pain or doing my dishes or cooking me breakfast. But I thought it is because he's near me because he likes me. And I think that's even more meaningful when you're going through suffering and you feel like, well, I can't do anything, or I'm not deserving value. But he didn't come because I was giving him treats. He came because he likes to be near me. And I thought, how powerful is that about God? That a big part of why he wants to be near us is he delights in us. Not because of what we're doing, but he delights in us and wants to be near us. Whew, okay, so God works through us, works in us. God works in us. And then what about God working through us and through our gifts in the battles that we face? So we're going back to the word Azer. A neat thing is that God made humans to reflect, that he made man and woman in his image. And so there are ways that we reflect him. And if we go to the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis 2, when God made the woman, he said, oh, I'll make a helper. That word is Azer. So it's not just like an assistant word. It's someone who brings strength to the battles of life, someone who comes alongside others in need with the strength that God provides. So I was thinking of women. That's a big reason why I wrote Her Battle Strength, was looking at women in the Bible and then interviewing women today and getting their battle stories. So I'm going to share 3 women. The first is the Queen of Sheba. So you've probably heard about her. Queen of Sheba. Okay, so I think of her battle is a battle for truth. There was people had heard of King Solomon and his wisdom and his riches and his power, but she was the queen of a country, probably Ethiopia, and she didn't know if it was true. So she didn't just send someone, go find out and tell me. She went herself. So I think of gifts and strengths. So maybe they're a gifting, or maybe it's just a strength that you want to have, that you develop and grow. I think of her as being a challenger, commanding, a researcher, an investigator. She probably also had the gift of gab, because she went and she explored all these things in Solomon's domain, and it said she told him all that was on her mind until there was no breath left in her. So she's pretty neat. But she saw these things, she investigated, she was bold and upfront, and then discovered truth and brought it back to her whole people. So she's a pretty neat person. Another woman is called the woman of Shunem. So I'll read the quick passage. This is in the Old Testament. One day, Elisha went on to Shunem, where a wealthy woman lived who urged him to eat some food. So whenever he paused that way, he would turn in there to eat food. And she said to her husband, behold now, I know this is a holy man of God who is continually passing our way. Let us make a small room on the roof with walls and put for him a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp, so that whenever he comes to us, he can go in there. So I think of her in modern day, and I think of some people that I know, and I think of their creative design. Hospitality, yes, but also creative design. I think of the person saying, and we'll put a fiddly fig, whatever it is, over here, and we'll put some essential oils, maybe with lavender here, and we'll have some throw pillows on the bed to match this accent wall. I can just picture, and a lamp. She has everything ready. So I think of this as a battle of noticing needs and responding to needs, and she was able to do that. But a neat piece about her is that some of us are really good at noticing and responding to needs that are not our own. And we don't do a lot about our own needs. But in her story later, her son died. She went to Elisha. She was in bitter distress, so probably a hot mess, and she threw herself on the ground, and his servant was like, go away, go away. And I think of Jesus' disciples when the people were bringing children, and the disciples are like, go away, you're kind of messy. But Elisha said, don't send her away. She's in bitter distress. And he listened to her and then went back raised her son from the dead, took care of her family. So she had this double strength of noticing needs in herself and others, and going to get help or giving help. The last woman that we'll look at gets one verse in the whole Bible. It's in the New Testament. And here's the context. Jesus was on trial. The people wanted him to be killed. They're yelling. He's being tried. And Pilate has to make a verdict of what's going to happen. So in the middle of all this political and upheaval, civil upheaval, we get this verse. While he, Pilate, was sitting on the judgment seat, he received a message from his wife that said, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." Period, the end, the only verse. I think this is kind of a battle for justice in my idea of this setting, but I think two things were beautiful about this one verse. One is that she spoke up, so we see some of her strengths or what she was using in the moment. She noticed an injustice, she spoke, she interrupted a whole big, powerful process to say something. She noticed someone was innocent, and she had the courage and bravery to say that. But the other piece is that God put it in the Bible. And he didn't just say a message got to Pilate. He said Pilate's wife sent him this message that he then ignored, condemned Jesus. Jesus then died. So it wasn't even listened to. Like, we might not think it was effective, but it was in the Bible. And so I love that God, in many times, but in this one verse, showed this woman's ability to see injustice and speak up was important. No matter what the outcome was, God honored and remembered her. So this will be during lunch, one of the things we'll be talking about these women. But my last piece, the last few minutes, is just thinking about, yes, there's lots of things God does in us, there's lots of things we can do for others, but how do we care for ourselves in times of battle? So another picture. I was searching for this, but I had never seen it before, but I like it. The bottom says, "Then the Lord God formed man of the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life." And sometimes we don't always think about that we are embodied souls, and that it's important to think about both, our soul and our physical body. God made us with embodied soul needs like oxygen and water and sleep, all these pieces. And then God also made a sensory-rich world and a sensory system that our bodies have. And God cares about us. He talks about the grass of the field and the birds of the air and people, and he healed broken sensory systems. When we think about blind people, deaf people, crippled people, he didn't just say, well, God loves you, so be happy. And he knew it was a temporary, like our current body is temporary, but God cared for that and healed it. The other balance, so sometimes we can just go physical and think, I just need to have the right exercise and diet and take care of myself and have the right medical care. On the other side, we can do just the spiritual and just think, I just need to pray more and read my Bible more. And I think about Jesus healing people and feeding people and also saying, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. So I do think as we care for our bodies, and God cares for our bodies, that our greatest need is spiritual and that connection with God. Because if we think about believers throughout history and currently across the globe, there are Christians who live in horrible physical circumstances with crippling poverty or homes destroyed by war, family members killed by those who hate Christians, people beaten, tortured, and imprisoned, and those same people being loved by God and nourished by God, and probably nourished in ways that some of us will never experience. So that is, while we care for our bodies, God knows our greatest need is connection with him. So I talked about a body function therapist, which my area was speech therapist. But I worked with occupational therapists and physical therapists, and we worked together with kids who had sensory needs that were so high they were disrupting their ability to learn or to be in social settings with other kids and teachers. But my coworker, my one colleague, said, all of us have sensory systems and sensory needs. And so, yes, kids might not be able to meet their needs, or they need to be taught how to meet their needs, but we also have needs that maybe we meet without thinking about it and kind of how we organize our world. Or maybe we don't think about it and we could really be caring for ourselves in some ways that don't require exercise routine and don't require diet restrictions, don't require a lot of money, but ways to think about our sensory selves. So you will be getting a checklist, which is like what my OT friend shared with me, but I'm going to walk through it with you and give my examples, because I love that as we're talking about different strengths that we bring out into the world, that we also have unique sensory needs that we want to take in from the world in ways that either energize us or calm us, or being aware of what irritates our systems. So here, you'll get it later if you can't read it super well right now. It's broken down into different sensory areas. So we have movement or vestibular, we have touch, tactile, oral, like things that different textures or flavors, visual input, auditory, and olfactory or scent. So this is one of your other questions at your table, is kind of to think about your unique system. So for me, the movement is one of the biggest pieces. If I want to energize or calm myself, I can do almost any of these, scrubbing something, stretching, like rocking my chair. The only one, yard work I like, the only one that does not energize or calm is extreme exercise. For me, that irritates my system. The other ones are heavy blankets. Those are all great. Touch doesn't really affect me one way or the other. For oral, motor, sensory things, if I'm on a road trip, I need sour candy. If it's a long one and I need to stay awake. The other piece was crunchy things. Got me through grad school, because I would just pour some raw cereal, and then eat it out of a cup as I was studying for exams or writing papers. That got me through. Cheerios, cornflakes, whatever it was. Yeah. Visual input, that's I think my top two are movement and visual. If I need to set up my desk, like how I set up my desk totally affects my work. What I put on my walls or my counters. So I'm learning more and more about this, of ways I can help my system go through the day. Auditory is funny, because I can have screaming babies in the background or silence, and it makes no difference to me. So for some people, those are huge. What auditory stuff is happening? And then smell is not really big for me. So, you get to figure out a little bit of your uniqueness as you go through this checklist. As we think about battles, the last thing was going back out from this room, back into battle. This is one of my favorite scenes in Lord of the Rings. But have any of you seen another movie, the Batman movie with Christian Bale? Yes. Okay, so there's a line in that says, Alfred says, "Why do we fall, Mr. Wayne?" Does anyone remember? Yes, to pick us back, so we can learn to pick ourselves back up again. I do like that line, but that's not why we're going back out into battle. Just fall down so you can pick yourself back up again. That's just be tough. We have reasons to go back out into the world. And the first is we can go back out because God is near us, and we're never alone. The second is for those in need around us who might need an Ezer help in their life or just in a brief moment. The other reason to go out is for those not in the room, those who are far from God. Some people are just not in the room because they couldn't be here. But for people who are far from God, who don't know his nearness, who aren't seeing how their gifts can be used in his kingdom. And then we go out for the glory of God, who made us more than conquerors and who delights in us. So this is my rally call to all of you, as King Theoden said, forth and fear no darkness. Thank you.